Awesome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be great. I know you guys are doing good work there in the toughest state to do it in California.
It is, as you know. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about Courage as a Habit, where it came from, just so they know?
I am happy to. I'm happy to. And I'll even share with you where we got our name. But for now, my organization, Courage as a Habit, creates tools and strategies for the average parent. We know that if you have school-age children, especially if you have school-age children, you don't have 10 hours a week. You probably don't have 2 hours a week to try to figure out all the complicated indoctrination tentacles, complicated on purpose. So our tools distill it down to bite-sized, very easily consumable, very graphical pieces of information, tools, strategies, so that you can understand what's happening in your child's school and you can decide for yourself if that's in your school or not. More importantly, though, our tools always end with a call to action, because I think a lot of times, just in everything in general, but especially in this side of the space here, there's a lot of creating of outrage, but oftentimes there's no outlet. And our philosophy at Courage as a Habit is that if you only create outrage with no outlet, it actually creates hopelessness, which is why, and I'm
100%, 100%, yes.
All the time, what can I do? This just seems, oh my God, it's been going on for 50 years. We don't want to do that. And I think sometimes people on our side, define our side however you want to define it, they get into outrage porn, where you just keep driving the outrage. Can you believe this? Can you believe that? Have you seen this? And there is a very short peak to that, because that outrage can drive people, but then once it peaks, it actually creates hopelessness. So we don't need to bombard parents. They're not trying to solve 60 years of indoctrination. You just want to make sure that your second grader isn't being told that they're the wrong sex, that they're the wrong color, that they can't succeed because of the skin color or any of those things. And we just explain to you, okay, look, you can do this. You can do this. Start with this first. And so that's what my organization does. What we do, we never say that we protect your children. We say we help you protect your children. And that's what Courage as a Habit in a nutshell does.
Well, and just two things I want to make a comment on. Courage is a habit. It speaks for itself, and it is so true. I mean, it just means exactly what it says, because to your point, and through your tools and resources, you help parents build up that courage, because as we've seen the last 4 years, when we saw with COVID, people were scared. They were afraid. Not only were they having that burnout, that rage fatigue, and not even willing to go up and fight for their children, they actually were too scared, even if they were willing and ready to do so. And I used to say, when I was giving talks, is that courage is contagious. And I actually think that that's how I found you. Not just the name, the title, and what it means. Courage is a habit. It's something that you have to be intentional about, and you have to continue to repeat and not give up on in order to create healthy habits.
That's right.
So I think that's how I found your work. And I also found your work because, as someone who likes to enrage people, not just Rob Bonta and Tony Thurmond and Gavin Newsom, but someone that likes to wake people up, I wanted to have action items. And I did have action items. I had ideas, but you create beautiful graphics. Your content is incredible. And that's how I found you, because I was like, these flyers. And just so people know, not only does he say, okay, now you need to go to a board meeting. This is, for example, this is how you go to a board meeting. This is how you submit your comment. This is how long the comment section is. This is how you can agendize something. You actually, and this was even the pièce de résistance, this was the icing on the cake for me, was that you walked it back to the last 50, 60 years of what has been happening. And you have like flow charts of where this came from and then how to identify it. So you will identify a word in red, and then you will show racism, and then you will show 3 euphemisms for that word or that idea or that concept, so that me as a parent who's just waking up to this situation, I can look at my child's curriculum. I can look at my child's, the materials that he or she are bringing home, and I can start scanning for these words and then go reference Alvin's or Courage is a Habits chart
Sure.
and be like, oh, this is really what they're talking about. And
Right.
this is where this is going to go to.
Right.
And when you did that, you connected the charts with, I'm new to this fight, the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I knew all of this information. I unfortunately was seeing the outcomes of the situation
Well, where you are,
in terms of families coming
especially.
to me,
Yeah.
exactly, looking for help. And it was a very easy way, graphically, visually, and very succinctly putting all the connecting all of the dots. So I strongly encourage everyone right now to go to courageisthehabit.org,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Go to
.com takes
.org.
you there too. .com takes you there too, but either one.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And then also to follow Courage is a Habit on Instagram, and then Courage Habit on X.
Yeah.
Again, you have to start. This is the place that I recommend that every parent starts when they're trying to see if their school is a good school or a bad school, and how to just be vigilant so that they can protect their kids. So that's amazing, and I hope everybody's doing that right now.
Thank you.
I,
I
I
would
want
say,
to go ahead.
for anybody who is maybe listening to you and is just getting into it, not
Yeah.
not 3 years into it, maybe like 6 months into it, 2 months into it, 2 weeks into it, anything like that, 6 months or less.
Yeah.
I would say even over 6 months, I would say that the best way to start, just the easiest way to start, is to go to courageisahabit.org and click under tools. And you're going to find there's 2 versions of it. But if you go to the very, very bottom, the very first tool we ever released, the very first one is called the 10 questions every parent should ask. And
Right.
it's not that we don't just throw 10 questions at you. We actually walk you through why we wrote the questions the way we did. We teach you how to use the questions. It's not just here's 10 questions and just ask them like a shotgun style. No.
Right.
We don't. We actually teach you how to do it. We talk about the psychology of why you ask 2 or 3 at once and how to work around word salad answers, because a lot of the administration, they give you word salads. They don't really answer you. They give you a non-answer. How do you work around that? So I would say just start there. So you don't have to believe us. You don't have to believe Nicole. Maybe you just go, maybe my school's not doing it. Your school's doing it. But maybe your school's not doing it. So just take the 10 questions, go and ask for yourself. And then when you realize the school's doing it, you can go, oh my God, Nicole, what do I do? And that's really what it's there for. Honestly, it's for people like Nicole so that she has a talking point, but it's really for you guys. Nicole spends a lot of time on this. You probably don't spend 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week on it. So it's written for you. So use that for the intention that is meant to be.
Well, another thing I want to say, and that I tell people all the time, is that if you're calling my office, it's too late. It means that your child has been injured, that your rights are being trampled, or they're trying to take them away.
Yeah.
My law firm is the last resort, and we, led the charge on the mandates because we wanted to throw salt in the gears and slow down. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to triage, and I am, I don't want to say more than happy because obviously it's not the most
not happy thing. Yeah, no, it's not a happy
pleasant
thing. I get what you're
thing
saying,
to do, but that's our role in this battle. And everybody has a role in the battle. And I would like to highlight what Alvin just said, which is even if you don't think that your school is doing it, it is doing it, number one. And number two, the way that they have manipulated the language and also the way that you perceive the language is part of the problem. So you think that they're not doing that, but until you start looking, and you don't have to make any commitment, just go download that first tool from courageisahabit.org, and you can just start your own investigation. You don't have to tell anybody, but you will start noticing things, and then you will realize that things aren't exactly what they seem. And I would like, while I do say that, there are, of course, amazing teachers, amazing counselors, amazing therapists in schools and school administrators and school board members. I don't want to say that everyone is bad, but those school officials and administrators in California at this current moment in time, the way that society and politics is at this moment in time, they are the minority and they are fighting a very strong, very persuasive and very pervasive agenda. So I don't want to say that you should be distrusting of everyone, but you should just have your antennae up. I want to read you a couple of statistics that are very, very alarming to me. And I just want to, kind of get your opinion on this. So right now we're talking about children in schools. And actually, before I read those statistics, people ask me why. Why are they going after the kids?
Sure.
Why have they been trying to for lack of a better word, dumb our children down, lower the standards. That all of this really, if people really want to get into this, is started with Common Core,
Mhm.
and then a lot of digitization of the academic records. Then we did digitization of medical records. Now we're doing
Right.
digit. So it's a double pronged, a double-headed serpent that we're fighting. But it started with Common Core, and it goes with like the dumbing down of our children and just like our society and standards. So people ask me all the time, but why have they been doing this? What do you know why, Alvin? What's your opinion?
Oh, I know exactly why.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Why don't you
I know
tell us
exactly why.
why?
It's not a me thing. It's just a history thing.
Yep.
So when critical race theory came into the culture of the school, they're not, and I'll explain when people go, they're not teaching. Now in California, there's ethnic studies, so they're teaching for sure. They're literally teaching because it's graduation requirement. But we'll talk about, I'll give you an example that should finally answer the question of we're not teaching CRT, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. So the reason why they're doing this to children, for one reason, if you want to create a revolution, you have to separate the children from the parents. That's it. No matter, I don't care if you're talking about Mao or Chavez or Hitler or anybody else, separating the children from the parents is goal number one. Because there's no such thing as you can't brainwash a 45-year-old man to be a revolutionist, right? There's no such thing. When Mao had his Red Guard, they were high school and college kids. They weren't 45-year-old guys, right? Who's going to brainwash like a 40-year-old woman, right? So in order to create the revolutionists, the young people, you got to separate them from their parents. If you wait until you brainwash them when they're 20, that's not, they're already baked. Even if, I mean, we're all stupid at 20, but you're not going to turn them into revolutionists where they go and help you turn over the country and dismantle the systems. You have to get them when they're little. But you can't do that because you've got these pesky things called parents that get in the way. So you have to separate them from their parents. And the fastest way to separate them from their parents is to sexualize the kids. And then when the parents fight back, you convince the kids that the parents are the one that are the enemy. They're abusive. They're unsafe. They want to hurt you. They're not your family. There's only two.
Okay, but I'm sorry. Why sexual? Why does it have to be sexualized? Because I understand, and I studied, Chinese history, and I have studied specifically Mao and his tactics. And I saw, and if people saw another great video, a film to watch is like The Great Awakening. And Nikki Willis does an incredible job analogizing what's happening in the United States right now with what happened in China.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're talking about like they would out their parents and they would bring them to government officials and they were trying to get rid of the four, traditions. I'm sorry, go ahead. Exactly. And but I didn't see the sexualization. And so I personally have an opinion about this. Like the sexualization of children that's the difference. So when people are talking, for example, I had James Lindsay on here a couple of weeks ago. He joined us and we had an incredible conversation and I understand that. But the sexualization, that sexual nature of this agenda and this Marxification of our children, that's the piece that I think I know the answer to, but I just am wondering why it's different here in the United States than, for example, in China.
Well, that's a culture thing because there's still, when you're going to the Asian cultures, there's a lot more strict cultures and protocols around sexualization. So there's still
even that was sacred, is what you're saying.
That's still sacred, right? Okay. In America, because of the sexual revolution, it gave them another in. It gave them, basically, it's queer theory and critical theory. They're the same. It's the two sides of the same coin, but the method, the method and the operating system's the same. But when you sexualize children, what the extra benefit of sexualizing children is that you open them up. You break them internally. Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a 16-year-old girl who marched for BLM. Now, short of her getting hurt or arrested, even if she got arrested, as long as she didn't really get hurt, it doesn't really impact her life. Because if she'll probably grow up at 20 years old and go, I was stupid at 16. I went to the BLM. I didn't care. My friends went. I held some signs. As long as you're not chucking Molotov cocktails, you're like, okay. No, we've all done stupid things, right? You can go to a BLM rally, you can post a little black square at 16. But when you get a 16-year-old sexualize her, and she gets raped or she gets trafficked or she cuts off her breasts, you can't come back from that. You've broken them forever. And I'm going to give you an example that I've never given before. So Nicole, I'm going to give you this example that I've never given before on any show. And I learned it. I got to give credit to my friend Audio Copy. We had a live stream, and it was just a stream of consciousness. He's just a really smart guy. And he told me something that really hit me. He said, there are gangs like these really harsh Mexican gangs, right? That get their members to tattoo their face. You know that? No, I'm not just talking about like a teardrop. I'm talking about, the whole thing.
Yes.
So why do they tattoo the face? Why not the arms? I mean, they do that too, but why the face, right? So he said the reason why they do that, besides the initiation, like how much pain can you take? When you tattoo someone's face, they can never join another gang.
Right.
They can't, because you're literally marked, the symbols, everything. You're done. You belong to that gang. So when you sexualize a child, okay, and you separate them from their families, or you make them so dumb, you called out earlier, why do you make them just, you can't read, can't write? Like in Baltimore, 40% of schools in Baltimore have exactly 0% of children that are math proficient. This is a mostly Black student body. 40% in Baltimore. But they know how to march. They know all about BLM. They know about all that kind of stuff. So that is their version of tattooing something on a child. If you get them to mutilate themselves, if you get them so dumb they can't do anything, this is what the gangs do. Look at your face. If the person wants to leave a gang, they go, look at your face. What are you going to do? You're going to go get a job?
You can't go.
Who's going to take
you? Especially for children, you are breaking that connection, that not intimacy, but for lack of a better word, with your parent.
So like now the child is mutilated. So the trans code's going to go. Where are you going to go? Who's going to want you? Which is the most evil thing to say, because now they can't go back to their family. You've already separated them. When it comes to the destroying of their minds in terms of academics, and you tell them this country's racist, there's countries that's gonna keep you down. There's a glass ceiling. It's a white supremacy. Even if you go, I don't know. I'm 25 and I don't know. I think I want to do something else. I don't want to just be in this activism. And then they're going to go, where are you going to go? You can't read, you can't write. So what they're doing to kids is they're figuratively and sometimes literally tattooing them in a way where the child can't go anywhere except be that activist. So the question that you asked me earlier, why they go after the kids? Simple. You have to separate the children from the family if you want to have a revolution, to create that revolution. And that's what Marxism is about. That's what critical race theory is about. It's about getting into the system and dismantling it. And let me just say, people always saying, we've been guilty of it too. We say the systems are going to be dismantled. We better fight. They're going to be. We got to stop saying that. They've been dismantled. Past tense. What we're watching is not the dismantling. What we're watching is the rebuilding. So the only question is, are we going to build parallel economies to crush them? Or are we going to run them out of our institutions and rebuild it the way it's supposed to be, which is based on the American Constitution and the American principles? Or we're going to let them build it in their own image? That's it. This is why when you look at United or you look at anything, name any industry, it's not dismantling. It's been dismantled. Now we're watching the rebuilding, but people are waking up thinking, oh, it's going to happen. It's happened already.
Wow.
It's just a rebuilding process.
Well, I was not expecting you to say that. I was thinking that we were not there yet. It's fine that you did say that. You think that
I'll tell you good news.
Reality.
Let me tell you the good news. Okay, I don't want to talk about the good news. Here's the good news about when you dismantle the system. Okay. Up till this point, when we're thinking we still have time, or maybe it's just pockets, right? Maybe it's just a couple of bad school counselors. Maybe it's just a bad CEO. Maybe it's just one bad die office. Maybe couple of bad diversity hires. But now we're realizing, that's not the case, right? Even, it could be 100-year-old baking company. It could be United Airlines. It could be a beer company. It could be anything that's 300-year-old. Harvard. It's all been dismantled. But here's the good news. Up to this point, there have been a lot of very brilliant people. The most brilliant people in the world don't get into politics. Why? Because they've got other things to do. This is why politicians mostly are so dumb. Because if you're talented, prove me wrong, right? If you're talented and you're smart and you're charismatic and you really know how to execute and get things done, not just talk. If you can get things done, you would get things done. You create, you innovate. You go to the private sector, you start businesses, you create jobs, right?
Totally. Yeah.
If you're not power hungry, right? You do that. That's what you do.
Right.
You're brilliant. When you dismantle the system, you ready for the good news? When you dismantle the system under critical race theory, which is what it is, even though we call it DI and DEI and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's critical race theory, bring down system. When you do that, what you did was you kicked out all the brilliant people. Remember, we're not meritocracy anymore, right? It's about skin color, it's about sexuality. So you took the brilliant people and you kicked them out of everywhere. Medicine, law, architect, web design, tech, everybody, everywhere, art, you name it, right? Education, everything.
So we have a great pool to pull from for our new society, our parallel society.
Now, the people that on our side are fighting is the super team. We've got
They're the best and the brightest.
Grit, bright. They don't blame. You can't beat them. If they lose, they just get up the next day and they keep going because that's who they are. So now the other side that's dismantled the system, they filled it with the Claudine Gays or the Fannie Willis, these mental midgets and these morons. That's what they filled their side with because that's what diversity hires do. That's what that's what affirmative actions do. You take the lowest common denominator and you shove them into a system, you dismantle it, you kick out the brilliant people. So on our, I've met people there was no way in hell I would ever meet. Architects, scientists, brilliant biologists. Why would I talk to people like that? I wouldn't. But because they've been doxxed and they've been kicked out. I just had a call with a brilliant doctor who was canceled, who was kicked out of his hospital. Why would I be talking to that guy? That guy's brilliant. It's because he's going, what's going on? Why am I'm just saying a man can't get pregnant. And all of a sudden, I'm a bad guy. And so what you're doing, so when you dismantle the system, what you did was you inadvertently pushed all the really hardworking, brilliant people together. And now they're going, you know what? F this. We're going to fight.
Well, then, if that's the case, isn't it just going to implode upon, collapse upon itself? There's no way that it can continue this way when there are people who don't actually want to work, who don't know what they're doing, who are not going to come back when things get tough, who can't take criticism, but want all the accolades and the salary and the benefits. I mean, that system is not self-sustaining. There's just no way that it can continue. So, in terms of how and I ask in terms of, it's a little bit rhetorical, but also in terms of where we put our efforts, then do we have to go after that system, or should we be focusing on building our own systems because that one will self-destruct eventually?
I'm going to take the same page out of our opponents, both. See, and I say, I hate using, you know what? Let me say that I hate using the word conservative. I'm going to say it only because everyone knows what I'm talking about. And I'll never mean Republicans, right? This is why courage is a habit. You'll never see us mention Democrat, Republicans. We don't mention that. We don't mention religion. It's about I'm loving America, and being a solid Americans, loving the Constitution, and then not loving the Constitution. That's it. It's about Americans versus Marxists, right? But I'm going to say conservatives for just this part of it. Conservatives always think in linear. They go, should we do this or this? Our opponents go, we do all. We do it all. Conservatives go, should I be on Facebook, or should I do TikTok, or should I just do flyers? Our opponents go, we do everything. And then conservatives go, hey, they're everywhere. Yeah. You know why they're everywhere? Why do you think they're everywhere? Because they think domination, and conservatives think, that's why I hate this word. Conservatives, just that word alone. If I had a bottle of water and I go, man, I'm out here in the sun all day, and I go, I better conserve this water. What am I saying? I'm going to do as little as possible to this bottle of water. In this fight, in this war on children, you can't be conservative. You have to be offensive. You have to move forward. You have to create mistakes for them. You have to put pressure on them. You can't conserve. If you conserve, they go, this is what they do when you conserve. I don't like this flag in this school. I don't like this rainbow sticker. It's just a sticker. Okay. I don't like this equity statement. It's just an equity statement. I don't like that big flag. It's just a big flag. I don't like this class. It's just a class. That's what conserving means. You just go, I just conserve and okay, live and let live. And that's why I hate that term conservative, because that, to people, it's inaction. It's apathy.
That's psychologically, right? We have to overindulge in our advocacy. Actually, we have to go above and beyond. That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way. But that definitely has an impact on how one identifies themselves, and then how they're going to align their actions with that label, whether they put it on themselves or someone else did.
What you say is what you think. and what you think is what you say. This is why, I mean, I have a story about why I call it courage as a habit, but at the end of it,
Yeah, I want to hear it. Go ahead.
I'll tell you the story. But the reason why I wanted to call it courage as a habit is because, well, you know what? I'll tell you the story. So when I was, before I started, I had a small nonprofit here in Indiana, and I would go around, I would speak to parents because I was naive to think, oh, I'm from California. If I tell them this is what's coming, they're going to go, oh, heck no, I'm going to stop it. But to my surprise, because I was so naive, they reacted exactly like how Californians did 25 years ago. Nah, it's not going to happen here. So I go to speak with parents, right? And then one night, I remember right before I got on, before they introduced me, and I'm a stranger in Indiana. I don't know anybody, right? I'm literally a stranger. And I had this epiphany going, this is weird. Why are people listening to me just because I'm from California, right? But so I started my speech that night, and I've been starting it ever since then. I still do it today. I would say each one of you in this room was probably pretty successful in some way, shape, or form. Some of you probably very successful, some of you mildly successful, but you're successful. Don't you find it weird that all of you brilliant, smart, beautiful people have to come on a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday to come listen to a stranger tell you how to defend your kids? How weird is that? People have been defending their kids since the beginning of time. They cross oceans. They crawl through deserts just to give their children a better chance. If your child or grandchild was in a burning building and they were screaming for you and you knew they were in there, nobody could stop you. Nobody. Godzilla couldn't stop you from getting that building. As long as you save your kids, you would die, no problem, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So why is it that when someone tries to sexualize your kids or abuse them mentally, politically, all they have to do is point a finger at your face and say you're a bigot or a racist or a transphobe or homophobe, and all of a sudden you stand down? How weird is that? Why is that? Yeah. And I said, because you all have made fear a habit. And the reason why you made fear a habit is over time, someone said, hey, you got to take this anti-bias training and work. What? I don't think any of us don't get along. No, you got to take it. You have unconscious bias. I don't think so. Okay, fine. Put this rainbow sticker on your laptop. I don't want to put a ring. All right, fine, boom. Put that black square. Put that pronoun in your email. Do this, right? And every time you try to say something, they go, that's racist. You're like, I'm just stating a fact. Why is that racist? Well, you can't speak because you're white. Or you can't speak because you're not black, or because you're this privilege or whatever, right? Whatever race, you're white adjacent, whatever. So you've made fear a habit. The problem with a habit, just like any habit, is every time you practice that habit, it becomes a little easier the next time. So because you've been silent, I better not say that. They're going to call me this. Over the years, it gets easier.
You just don't say anything, right?
You get easier to be silent. Now, when they come after your kids, your operating system has been rewritten for fear, and you don't know what to do. You know what to do. So I said, but the good news is you don't need someone like me. You need to remember that your God-given abilities and your responsibility is to protect your child. You are the first, best, and last line of defense. So courage is also a habit, but it works in reverse. Every time you want to say something, maybe on Facebook or Instagram, or maybe at a family get-together, and you're like, oh, your heart's jumping out of your chest, and you don't say it, you have to say it. At that moment when your heart's jumping out of your chest, that's your trigger. You should say it at that moment. Because if you say it at that moment, it's going to be real uncomfortable. And someone's going to call you a racist, and it's going to suck. But the next time, you won't know it, but the next time it's going to get a little easier. You won't know it. But by the 8th, 10th, or 15th time, maybe 20th, I don't know you, maybe everyone is a little different, the mental makeup, you're not going to feel that anymore. And because you would have adopted courage as a habit. But that first 5 times sucks for everybody. But once you make that a habit, you'll never go back. I swear to God, I promise you, if you make courage as a habit, you will never go back. There will never be a day where you go, you know what, maybe I should go back and shut up. You're never going to say that again. You just have to go through that pain one time, okay? Or 5 times or whatever times. But you just got to go through that process one time. Once you speak up and you take that racist, blah, 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 it doesn't matter anymore, you will never go back. So anyway, that's how I started the speech for the most part. So then when it came to start the national organization, I thought, I wanted a name that every time someone said it, it gave them hope and inspiration without them knowing it. So when you go, hey, you're talking to someone, you go, have you heard this organization, Courage is a Habit? They go, no. What's that website? Courage is a Habit, courageisahabit.org. Everything you say it, they say it back to you, and you say it. You guys just exchange inspiration without knowing it. And that's what I wanted the organization to do, that by itself, just naming the organization gave people that your brain, your subconscious hears it, and it starts to override that operating system of fear. Like you said earlier, people just were afraid to say, they know they should say something, but they're afraid. It's because that was their habit. And there are mouthy, arrogant people like you and me that don't have that. And so we just, right, we just say it. And there are very few people. It's like my co-founder, Jennifer McWilliams, she got fired as a teacher because she spoke up when nobody did back in 2019. And that sucked. When in 2019, when you're bringing this up, that sucked. And she got fired for it. But you know what? That lit a fire under her. And she's been mouthy ever since, and dragged the whole country along with it. So that's what I'm talking about. You never go back once you make courage a habit.
Well, I mean, I love everything that you just said. With keeping that in mind, for parents who are watching, and even people who are not parents, but who care about what's happening to this country, starting with what they're doing to children, where should they focus their efforts first? Especially for people who care but don't have children. Like, should they be going to school board meetings, county board meetings? Should they be running for office? Where do you think, now that people are finally understanding what's happening, how they've been conditioned for fear, which is actually being conditioned to be silent, where can they start exercising their courage, and what issues should they be tackling first, in your opinion?
I'll start with the issue. The issue is easy. What you do is a little harder because it depends on your personality, your natural skill set. Everybody can do something, but it may not be. Maybe they go, look, I don't like to speak. I can't do what Nicole and Alvin's doing. I can't get on camera. I don't do that. But that's okay. If you don't, like, I know this one guy, he's brilliant. The way he knows how to foyer, the way he knows how to crunch the information, and the way he just keeps at it. I didn't have the patience to do that, but he does, right? So, but he couldn't do what you and I are doing right now, right? It would freak him out. So I'll go to the action, but let's start back. Your second question, what's the issue? So whether you have kids or not, you should be in this fight, because you're going to have grandkids, and where are your kids going to live? Who's going to be their friends? Who are they going to marry? Who are they going to date? Who's going to hire them? Who are they going to hire? I hear this all the time. I'm sure you do too. Oh, thank God my children's a senior. Oh, thank God they graduated. I'm like, did they leave Earth? Did they leave this country? They don't live here anymore? They think that the problem that you and I are fighting stays in K through 12. That's the training ground. That's the minor leagues. They train the kids to go out into your world and destroy your world and your children's world. They can't go get a job in one of these ESG woke corporations without admitting that a man can get pregnant. So you can't say, thank God my children are out, because it actually impacts your entire family, because these kids leave and become revolutionists. Like I said, that's what all the Red Guard and everything's about. So the issue, if you have kids in school, if you don't have kids in school, then you should either find a group and lend your talents, donate, or go to school boards and speak up, because you don't have kids, but you're paying, right? You're a taxpayer. If you have kids in schools, the first thing you have to do before you can tackle any issue is you have to recognize that you've been brainwashed first. Because if you go in and you try to take action and you're not aware of this, and I'm going to explain what that means, you have to understand the concept of language contamination. Because if you don't understand that and you go in and fight, they're going to give you this load of language, and you're going to think it's not so bad. It sounds okay. I don't know what I'm fighting. This is not what Alvin told me. This is not what I read in Courageous Habit. So language contamination, here's the easiest way to describe it. They use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. Okay? They use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. So they'll say, all we're doing is teaching empathy. What's wrong with that? And you're like, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But what I mean by they use your vocabulary, not your dictionary, is that if you're a normal parent and you teach your, let's say, 6-year-old or 10-year-old about empathy, it's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, think of someone else before yourself, think about how they feel. How would you like it if someone did that to you? But what they mean is that if you're a girl and a man walks in the bathroom and you get that reaction, you need to have empathy for him. You need to put yourself in his shoes. How would you like it if someone didn't let you use the bathroom? When I give that example, parents go, whoa, that's not what I mean by empathy. Right. But that's what they mean. And they know you don't know that's what they mean. This is why you have to understand language contamination, to use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. So once you can understand that everything they're telling you is not through your lens, it's through a lens of a transgender cultist or someone that wants to separate your child, then you start to go, okay, when they say I support all children, you don't mean all children. You mean children that identify as the group that you deemed marginalized. I support all parents. Oh, just the
so how
parents.
do you know the difference? Like, how do you? I have small children. I'm sorry, I have to stop you. Like, I have a 7-year-old. I literally just had this conversation with my 5-year-old. How would you like it if she did this to you? And I understand that they're bastardizing it, right? They're manipulating it and taking it to the extreme.
That's right.
So how
Yeah.
do you, as a parent, instill these values without subverting your children and your family and your values? And like, this is the way that, this is the way that we do it, the Jones way, the Smith way. How do you know how far to go and how I, I mean, we're dealing with some very intense mental gymnastics that have, like you just mentioned, they've been laying the foundation to for decades. So how do you, what's the guardrail as a parent?
Well, that's why this is why if we always say, if you can pull your kids, right? Because it's not an easy answer. But the answer, if you can't pull your kids, this is the answer. One of the answers anyway, is there's two things. And this is not going to solve the problem, but it's a big blood in the water for them. Okay. You have to get social emotional learning out of your schools, but you can't get it out of your schools because it's the culture. But there are two things that you can do that will put blood in the water. Okay. The first thing, you got to get them out of the data mining. You have to
Right,
get them out of the data mining because the data is the lifeblood. If even
right.
25% of schools say no more surveys, that money is going to not produce the numbers that they expect. If 25% of the kids can't take it, it's just a big mess for them. So if
And
you go,
it sounds just like COVID. This is just like COVID. This
right,
is the government's equation. They get
right.
the data, they use the data to drive the justification, they use those stats to drive the justification for the programs, for the funding, for the control, for the additional tracking and surveying. And okay, so go ahead. That just like triggered, popped in my
No,
head.
no, no. That's a good question. So the data. So here's how you get out of the data. You go to courageasahabit.org. You click on SDL surveys. We explain to you what the surveys do. I won't get into it here because of the time that we have, but it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. They take your children's data, they
Exactly.
manipulate it, they come back and say the school's really racist, is really oppressive, we need more SEL. And it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll never achieve equity until the kids can't read, can't write, can't do anything except march.
Right.
So that's the self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why our school looks like this. They've been doing this now for about 8 to 10 years, 7 to 10 years, depending on where you are in the country. And every school's doing it. I know there are some people out there going, I live in a red state, in a red county. They're doing it too. I promise you, you cannot find me one school that isn't doing it. Send me your school. If you don't think you're doing it, we'll find it. So get them out of the data mining. So courageasahabit.org, click on SEL surveys, download any one of those items. Okay. I would download the first one because the first one explains it, and then we go down a little deeper. At the end of every tool, there's an opt-out form. Use that opt-out form. Parents have been using it with success across the country. Second thing you got to do, you have to make sure your children have no access to mental health professionals. And that brings me to the most important thing that anybody can do. You have to get kids away from school counselors. The school counselors is where a great majority of this trans ideology, this critical race theory, this anti-white, anti-American, yes, it's in the classroom. Yes, the teachers do it, but the school counselors are the mental health professionals. They are in charge of literally your children's mental health, and they drive your children's mental health towards social activism. So let me just give you a quick history of the school counselors. They are no longer the guidance counselors that you and I had when we were growing up. You saw that really nice old lady or that nice old man one time in 4 years, maybe twice. He
Right.
taught
For
you about
college
your
application.
college
Right.
application, AP classes, advanced placement classes, that kind of thing. They're gone. And they are
Right.
now called school counselors. And while they started calling themselves school counselors in the late 90s, mid 2000s, they were largely still guidance counselors. But their mission changed in 2014 under Michelle Obama's Reach Higher initiative. Her Reach Higher initiative basically deputized these school counselors to be social justice change agents. But the way she disguised it, the way her administration disguised it is, we're just going to help kids get into college more. But the way they have to do that is they go, but we can't do that because there's only 1 or 2 counselors per 800 kids. We need more one-on-one time with them. And with that, we've now spent billions on mental health. And now that's why your schools are crawling with school counselors and social workers, because that program started started the slippery slope of going, we need more school counselors. We need more school counselors. In fact, in January, this January here in 2024, Kamala Harris just announced an additional $285 million on top of the billions they've spent the last 10 years to what? Hire more more school counselors and mental health professionals. You got to
Can I interrupt you? And can I interrupt you really quickly? So
Sure.
just for people, a lot of people just jumped on. This is if you cannot pull your children from public school, which is, and are you talking about just number one, traditional schooling? Because I've seen this happening in private schools as well,
Absolutely.
whether they're religious or secular. So are you essentially
Absolutely.
telling people to homeschool or get in a co-op where you are controlling
I say this with one caveat. I understand everybody's family is different. It's not easy to do it. I'm not going to pretend it's easy. I think there are some people out there be like, I would live in a cardboard box to pull my kids. It's like, that sounds good, but really let's be realistic, right?
Right.
Now, should you downsize? Could you move and downsize? Sure. I can't tell you, I don't know. Are you taking care of a sick parent? Do you have a child that has special needs? There's so many things. Right? So I can't say that. So, but if at all possible, if you're going to sacrifice your money, if you're going to pump money or lose money because you're going to not work, one person has to stay home, whatever, right? For God's sakes, do it when they're under 13. Don't save your money for their 18 and send them to college so that they can be brainwashed even more on your dime this time. Not that you're not paying on it. That's ridiculous. Look,
right.
We all know that anything that's little is the most precious. If you take a sapling and you go, one day it's going to be an oak tree, it can die very easily when it's a sapling. Too much sun, not enough water, too much water, right? An animal can eat it. But when it's a big oak, nothing's going to hurt it. We say that when we bring the baby home. Certain so-and-so can't can't touch it, can't her, him, you can't do that. You got to protect. We do that to a baby. But when it comes to their their education, we're like, just drop them off into a building. And then it is a ridiculous notion that we drop kids off at a building and say, you teach them. You, a stranger that don't know, she hasn't gone through the teething and the throwing up and staying up all night and knowing your child. It's ridiculous. So if you can at all possible, I promise you, your worst day as a homeschool parent, a homeschool teacher, is the best day of the best teacher in government public schools. Because nobody can love your child and know your child better than you. You will figure it out. But if you can't do it, or you can't do it yet, there's some families that go, man, we moved here. We've worked really hard to live in a nice place, but it's in this. Yes, it's everywhere. Even if you live in a very nice suburb. If it's not yet, then you still need to do what I'm saying, right? You still got to protect your kids until you can get them out. So the surveys, school counselors, here's how you opt out. Easy. courageisahabit.org. Click on school counselors. So you got 2 tabs. You got the SEL surveys. You got the school counselors. In the school counselors, we have a bunch of tools called behind closed doors. We painstakingly expose the school counselors for you. We have to go to their seminars. We got to go to their conferences. We even have to take their damn certification training. I hate giving those people money, but we had to do it so that we can show you what they're doing. We expose them for you. At the end, there's an opt-out form. Make sure your children don't have any access to mental health professionals in schools. It's ridiculous. When you send them to a dentist or you take them to the violin class, you ask your sister, your cousin, your neighbor, Facebook, you get referrals. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Right. Everybody. They're strangers.
Yeah. Right. So you can't even take your child to a violin class or a swim class without vetting them and reading reviews and going on whatever reviews app you use. But somebody at school that you've never vetted, no one's referred it, nobody, you don't know anybody that's referred you, or you've never reviewed them, they're going to talk to your kids about if they're a boy or a girl.
Can I ask you, though, specifically in California, minors 12 and up can consent to mental health services, substance
I know.
abuse services,
I know.
sexual reproductive health services. Senator Scott Wiener tried to do all vaccines, which would have led perfectly segued into gender affirming care services.
That's right.
So does your opt-out forms work in California, where there is a law that establishes that children 12 years and older can consent to mental health services without their parents' knowledge and consent? And I hope that everybody in California knows that and goes to factslawtruthjustice.com, our resources tab, or you could just simply Google it, minors, consent,
Yeah.
mental health, whatever. And there's a chart. There's a youth law center chart that shows you all the laws, when they activate, when they trigger, how to opt in, how to opt out. And I
Right.
have the opposite for you at
You know,
factslawtruthjustice.com.
it's if you're asking by the letter of the law, no, they can override you as a parent. And that's where we've all been asleep at the wheel, haven't we? Most people go,
Yes,
how did that get passed? You got passed because you weren't
yes,
paying attention and you can't roll that back. But I will
right.
say this, the answer, if you're in like California, like Illinois, they're just looking at this bill. That's a horrible transgender affirm or else. They're
Right.
fining parents up to $25,000 and up to 15 years in prison if you don't consent to transgender surgeries, right? So
Mhm. Right.
so for the parents who live in any, I mean, this is all 50 states, but for those of you who are in states where it's really against you, and again, all 50 states do it. I want to be very clear here, Nicole. I want to be very clear. I don't want anyone rolling their eyes. Oh,
I
she's in
appreciate that.
California. No,
No, it's
none of
true.
it. It's in every state. The school counselors, the American School Counselors Association, ASCA, okay, the American School Counselor Association is an organization that trains all the counselors, or the great majority of it. They're all trained to keep secrets from their parents, whether your state allows it or not. So it's easy to say, well, California allows it, so nothing I can do. Your state doesn't allow it, they still do it. So you still have to fight. So
Yeah, and I go ahead.
besides the
I
opt-out
just
form,
yeah.
the
Go
one
ahead.
thing that you can do is you have to teach your child to protect themselves. So
That's what I was going to say. We always have control of what happens within the four walls of our home.
your
Go ahead.
children's mind right here between their ears, that's your baby. Okay. That's your baby. That's your child. You gave him life. You gave her life. And when all these child abusing mental midget narcissists, woke white women, counselors, teachers, when all these non-binary mental midgets are gone, you're gonna be there. Okay. Always remember that. You're gonna be there. So we helped you out. We're gonna start you off. If you go to courageisahabit.org, school counselors, you were there anyway, because you're gonna do the opt-out forms. There is something called stranger danger. We provide you 4 strategies that every family can modify based on your family values, based on your child, the age of your child. But all 4 strategies helps you know how to train your child to protect themselves. I'll give you one of the
Wow.
I'll give you one of the 4. Again, age of child, you modify it. The first one, it's called the circle of trust. The first strategy. You teach your child. And again, the younger the child, the smaller the circle, because they can only keep so many people in mind. Maybe it's just your mom, dad, and your sister. That's it. That's your circle of trust. And in your circle of trust, nobody can tell you to keep secrets from your circle of trust. So if someone tells you to keep a secret, you go, okay, but not to the members of the circle of trust. There is 0 secrets in the circle of trust. And again, if they're little, you tell them that way. If they're a little older, obviously, you don't have to couch it in such an elementary level. Another strategy is, especially when they're younger, teach them words that's a shutdown word. Use the words that the teachers use against you. So if they show you a book that's obscene, or a video of sex and butt plugs and things, that in California, that's comprehensive sex ed is so vulgar, it's so obscene, it's basically porn. Or the teacher counselors start asking you about, do you have guns in the house, and is your parents divorced, and all these different personal questions, so that they can start profiling your kid. You teach your child, if they start talking to you about these topics that are off limits, you say, I don't feel safe with you. I want to stop this conversation. I don't feel safe with you.
Perfect.
I feel
Perfect.
harassed. Call my mom. And those are
Wow.
shutdown words, because if your child says that and they keep going, that's a huge problem. Even in California, as a lawyer, you would
I'm loving this. I
right?
love this.
So those four, again, there's four, very simple. Are they the end all be all? Absolutely not. And I hope the four strategies will actually inspire you to come up with things that make sense to your family, right? If you're an Indian family, a Japanese family, if you're a Muslim family, that's you guys, there's different cultures. I get that. But those four strategies that we're giving you, it applies to everybody. It helps your child have shutdown words. It teaches them things like circle of trust. It teaches them all just really great things that maybe a parent
Do the last two because I love these. Will you just quickly run through the last two? Circle of trust, shutdown words, and
one of them are topics. There are certain topics that there's a certain amount of topics that you don't talk about except with the people from the circle of trust. And the way we couch that is the first one is going to be the circle of trust. The last one is that shutdown word. But the second one is topics for families only. So you, again, if they're little, you got to keep it simple, but you're older, you can talk to your eighth, if they're eighth grade or whatever, ninth grade, but you can say, these are the topics that anyone in school asks you, you say, I only talk about it with people in my circle of trust, and you're not in my circle of trust. And they keep pushing it. You go, I don't feel comfortable talking to you. I feel unsafe. They can't shut the hell up about the word unsafe. You teach your child to say that I feel unsafe. I feel harassed. I feel harassed. Right. I feel marginalized. Call my mom. Right. So that's the first one. Circle of trust, establish topics for family only. And the third one, and this is the third one is rehearse the responses. That's the mistake. It's not the last one. It's the third one. Rehearse the responses with your child, the shutdown words, the shutdown responses. The last one's probably the hardest. At least for me, it was. As a parent, especially as a father, especially if you're a father of girls, your natural inclination is avoidant. You don't want to hear the trans. You don't want to hear non-binary. You just want to keep them away, right? And I always say you just got to keep your kids away from social media and don't let them watch any Disney shows that are made after 2013 or, something like that, right? You go back to Lion King. You go back to the classics. But here's the problem. If you avoid these things, if you avoid these words, diversity, things like that, if you don't get to them, they will. And if whoever plants the flag in your child's mind, that's the definition they're going to remember. So you want to not expose them.
You want to get there first. Okay.
But you want to do it slowly, like what vaccines were supposed to do, right? You're supposed to inoculate them slowly. So you start to introduce the word diversity on your terms. You introduce inclusion on your terms. We include everybody because we want to be nice, but we don't include people in our circle of trust, do we? No. See, it's not always about inclusion. Sometimes it's about, this is our circle of trust. We're excluding people, and that's okay. So now when someone goes, oh, you got to be inclusive, you're like, no, but in my circle of trust, I'm not inclusive. So now you got to give them a foundation to these words, transgender and binary and marginalized and racism and white supremacy. You have to get that. Again, depends on the age of the child. But look, as a father of young kids, I don't want to talk to them about sex until when they're older, much older, preteen, teenagers. But you can't. And you got to be realistic. You can't. You got to understand that there's a war on children. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, my friends Robbie and I know you've been seeing it, Robbie and Landon, thewaronchildren.com. It is a mind-blowing documentary. Everybody got to go.
That you were in. Don't be shy.
I was in it, but I promise you, I'm the worst part in it. So everybody did a great job in it. It's called thewaronchildren.com. Go see it. It's incredible. You should show your family, especially if you have family that goes, this is just fear mongering. This is GOP talking points. Show them the film. It will change their life. It will change the lens. They have no idea the war on children. But because of this war on children, we have to adjust. And when I say adjust, I don't mean, well, I guess they just have to learn what non-binary is. No, you got to adjust it by inoculating them so that you understand. And if we have time, I'll give you this thing. I'll share something that I told one of my little kids. So here's how I describe diversity, okay, to one of my little girl. I said, is diversity always good? What's diversity? Well, diversity is difference. So it's good to have diversity of shoes, right? You can't, if you wear your Crocs in the snow, that would be kind of silly. She goes, yeah, that's good. Well, if you wear your snow boots in the pool, that's not That's not fun, right? It's so hot, your feet gets hot, right? So isn't diversity of shoes good? Yes, it is. What about music? You're in music class, you learn different instruments, you learn about this music and jazz and African music and this music and different things. Isn't that great? Diversity of music. Isn't that wonderful? Christmas music is there, And she goes, yeah, it is. So is diversity always good? She goes, yeah, it's always good. Always good. Okay. What about tires? What about tires? Imagine you had a small tire and a big tire and a square tire and a triangle tire. Your car's going to be all crazy and you're going to crash. You'll be like, that would be silly. I go, yeah, is diversity good then? No, diversity is not good then. Okay, so diversity is not always good, right? Right. So when someone tells us, sweetheart, when someone tells you a trait is always good, that's not true. It depends. And you have to use critical thinking. This is why mommy and daddy teaches you certain things. And as you get older, you'll start to learn, hey, that person is not very honest about that, but I know this is true, but I don't think so. So I got there first. So the next time someone tries to tell her that, I'll go, well, is that always true though? Can you think of a reason why that's not true? Is giving always good? She goes, yeah, giving's always good. You give gifts, you give things, it's always good. And you know what she said? I go, when is giving not good? I thought, oh, I'm going to get her here. She's not going to, that's hard, right? When is giving not good? That's hard, even for adults. She thought about it. She goes, giving's not always good. If you give someone a cold, that's not good. I said, there you go. That's critical thinking. And if we can get kids to critically think for themselves, it inoculates them from all this language contamination. You don't.
And even more than that, just planting the flagpole so that like you said, you have the anchor there. So now, since she's had that conversation with you, if she has it anywhere else and it differs from what you discussed, or someone raised a different point or an interesting point, without realizing it, she'll be coming back to you with feedback, and you'll have now a gauge on the types of conversations that she's having. So that's brilliant, because you are, without her even knowing, you are planting, again, flagpoles or like sensors in her mind and in her life, that now you can be tracking what's going on. You'll have a pulse on what's going on without really even, you don't have to be a hovering helicopter parent or rifling through her
Nope.
drawers or her journals. She'll be
Nope.
coming to you because you have this great conversation, even a little tiny tip of the iceberg conversation. But now you've opened that arena to her mind, and now she comes to you to speak. I mean, that's very
You know,
brilliant, and that's scary too.
you know
But
what
it's
the
great.
school
I mean,
counselors do that we all should take a page from? I love taking pages from my opponents because they're brilliant. They're not,
100%.
I mean,
Yes,
the water carriers are dumb as hell, but the people who drive this stuff are brilliant. If they're not brilliant, you and I probably would never met. We wouldn't be talking, right?
right.
They would have taken over the
Yes,
system, dismantled the system. You know what their
yep.
greatest power is besides language contamination? Consistency. They're consistent.
I just had a conversation
A
about
little
this. They will
flag, a little
stay.
thing, a little
Yes,
story. So you as parents have to be consistent. It can't just be one conversation. It has to be reinforcement. So there's something in psychology called framing. Your framing
yes.
has to be stronger than theirs. And yet that framing in your child's mind has to be stronger. It's like a frame in a house. If your frame is you're just too busy, you don't teach them, talk to them, coach them, mentor them. If you don't have that frame, someone's going to come in and they're going to replace that frame in your house. But if you have a strong frame, yeah, they might try and they might even get into your house a little bit, but you can kick them out because your frame is good. So your frame has to be stronger. And the only way to do a strong frame isn't 1 or 2 conversations or 10, is you have to be very consistent. And that's the thing that the schools do really good. But they know they can do good because they have time. They have your kids 7 hours a day for 12 years. They're not in a rush. They know if they don't get them in kindergarten, they'll pick them up at first grade. They don't pick them up at that thing at first grade, they'll pick them up at second grade. By the time they're in the eighth or ninth, 7th or 8th, 9th grade, then that's it. So whether they get them whether you start getting, start using pronouns in the 8th grade or the 10th grade, it doesn't matter to them because they know they're going to get your child's mind because they're consistent. So it's the
Well,
consistency.
and it is. And I think that that's been the hardest part for a lot of parents in the
Yes.
last couple of years,
Extremely hard.
is and admitting that we have contracted out our obligations and our duties as parents and guardians,
We've all done
not
it.
just to the state, but to people who are actively coming after our child, to some of the most dangerous people possible for our
We've
kids.
all
So I
done it.
think, yeah, and
We
I
all
think
done it.
that's been the hardest realization, and then realizing I have to look at my life and I
Mhm.
have to readjust in many cases very severely, especially
Yeah.
here in California, for example. That's so expensive to live here.
Yeah.
You have to work multiple jobs, even if you have the best intentions. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm busy because I'm working 3 jobs so that my kids can have these opportunities and these experiences. But like you said, and I did want to say this earlier, I know that right now this courage is a habit and this might be painful to make these realizations and these changes, but this, the impact you have right now on your children, as soon as you can have that impact, the greater the that you will reap the benefit of that. Because like you were saying earlier, the longer you wait, the more trauma will have been caused and the more you will have to work to bring your child back. So
Yeah.
I say you have to stop the bleeding now. You're already there. There's no sense beating yourself up. You've
Yeah.
got to start working now. It's only going to be exponentially worse if you wait. And like the parents that we've seen of children who've been transitioned or are starting to transition, that is the pain and the time and the money that you never anticipated ever spending. Just imagine doing the work within your home, within your relationships and your family today, and how much you can, how many harms and you can stave off in the future.
Pick your
Um,
heart. Everything's hard,
Yep.
right?
Pick your heart.
Pick your heart.
Exactly. Pick your
Being,
heart.
you know what? We're grinding, and trying to earn a living is hard. Grinding when everybody's resting is hard. Being poor is hard. Going,
Right.
being healthy is hard. It's a pain in the ass. Being unhealthy is also hard. Pulling your kids from school, or at least working and fighting and, making time that you don't have is hard. Saying, honey, you're not a girl, and having them take your daughter or take your son away, that's hard too. So pick your heart.
I totally agree with you. We've talked about a lot more than I thought. I learned a lot about you. I thought I knew you very well before this interview. What do you want your legacy to be with all the work that you've done and everything that you've experienced? What do you want your legacy to be?
I want the people who work with courage as a habit and for courage as a habit, or people who've used our tools. I want them to feel really confident and inspired that they don't need a courage as a habit. I want my legacy to be one where an organization like mine is not needed, because I think a courage as a habit is a immune system response to something that's really wrong. I don't think we should be doing this, but we are, because it has to be done. So I think an organization like Courage as a Habit is a immune system response. Like I said
I
earlier,
couldn't agree. Yeah.
all this dismantling has pushed people out. There are biologists, there are evolutionary biologists, there are architects, there are graphic designers, there are artists, there are these people that should be doing something else in an alternate universe, but we're all together doing this. And it is whether you believe in God or not God, or whatever you believe in, there is an immune system response. So my legacy, I hope, is that I want everyone to go, he was just a normal dude, and everybody can do something. Everybody can do something no matter what the problem is. That's it. I just want everyone to understand that everybody can do something. There's nothing so special about someone that's doing what I'm doing or what you're doing or anything else. Everybody has something, but you just got to be able to face the hard. And that's it. There's no
Well,
legacy other than just reminding people that if everybody does their part, you don't need something like Courage to have it.
I think that is very humble because what you're doing is incredibly not just special but powerful, and giving people courage and teaching them courage and giving them the tools to build and maintain that courage is heroic, and it's a huge task that nobody did before you, nobody was doing before you, and certainly in my opinion, with all the people that I know, all the organizations, I've never seen anything like I've seen at courageisahabit.org. And
Thank
so
you. That's very kind of you.
you
Thank you.
are you're welcome, you're well on your way. And I would say I love that. I spoke at a pastor's summit last summer and I said something very similar, and almost as if like I wish that I wasn't here and that I wasn't even invited to speak here. I wish it wasn't necessary, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I
Sure.
feel your heart. It's
Yeah.
like almost a wish to be irrelevant because the problems have course corrected and rectified themselves. So I definitely feel you. Uh, is there what's like the last kind of message that you want to give to our listeners today? And actually, just before we do that, I want to just recap. Alvin has so graciously and generously donated his time, explained where we are, why we're here, why they're coming after our children, why in the United States they have specifically been attempting to sexualize our children, which also there's a whole other part of that, even more
Yeah.
benefits to that as well. And then he has shown us how in his organization, on his website, courageasahabit.org, you have tools as a parent or as a decent human being who cares
Mhm.
about children and the future of this country, even if you don't care about children or have any of your own, how you can start to, number one, looking at the conversations and the materials that you're consuming and start identifying where the cracks are, where the
Mhm.
vulnerabilities are, where you're
Yeah.
being attacked, and then gives you tools to start asking questions slowly and poking holes back into that, and then how you can actively fight it and protect not just, again, your children or any child, but yourselves and your freedoms, and truly the future of this country. So thank you for that. Um, but I do, even though we've covered all of that, what is we have two things to do. I want to ask this question, one more thing I want to do with you, but what's your final message to listeners and viewers before we go?
Never let anybody tell you that you can't stand up for your children. Never let them tell you a bigot or you're unkind. You just have to reject that weaponization of kindness, because if you don't stand up for your children today, they will live on their knees tomorrow.
I love that. Okay, I love that. I hear you, and I second that. So the last thing we're going to do, it's a little bit fun for Friday night. I love
Okay.
doing this thing called Patriot Trader Pass. Have you seen it? I know you have, because you watch this show and all of the many
I
episodes.
saw it with James. You know what? I did see it with James. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Patriot Trader Pass. Can I do a couple with you really quick?
Sure.
Okay. Tucker Carlson.
So remind me, what's my response
So
here?
do you think he's a patriot? Do you think that he's a traitor to this country?
Oh,
Or are
right,
you
right, right.
just like it's
That's right.
too
That's right.
nuanced?
That's right. Yeah, you did that with James. It was funny. I love James. He's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so you
Um,
think James is a patriot, so I'll erase him from the list.
oh yeah. I mean, he would no, well, I always call him a traitor just so that I can get a text from him. He can laugh at me. But Tucker Carlson, Patriot.
Okay. How about Vivek?
Vivek Ramaswamy,
Yes. Yes.
Patriot.
Okay. Kevin Kiley.
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say, actually, I'm not very familiar enough.
Well, that's fine. He's a big guy in California, and now
Okay,
he's in the Congress. But I'll introduce you guys. You're gonna love him.
great. Yeah,
What about Charlie Kirk?
Patriot.
Michael Obama?
Who?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, absolute traitor. Just, I don't care
uh,
what else you've done. Just that Reach Higher program right there is already.
there you go. That's why we put it in there. Kanye West.
Kanye West. Man, I think Kanye West loves Kanye West.
Is that so bad?
No, not at all. I think Kanye West is a patriot to Kanye West. I don't know. I don't think I don't know if he thinks very much. But like I said, I have no idea. I only see what he wants people to see it. He's a great marketer. He's a fantastic fantastic celebrity. He's a fantastic artist. However you want to define artists, but I think Kanye West is a patriot to Kanye West. At least that's what he wants us to feel. So I'm going to go with whatever he's presenting, because he is obviously a public figure.
Okay. How about Alex Jones?
Patriot.
And well, why don't you tell me if you could think of like who is the quintessential traitor to our country right now, or not right now? Who is the quintessential traitor to the United States of America, in your opinion?
Oh man, there's so many.
I
I think
know. Top
mean,
three, top five.
I think looking back now, I think Barack Obama set a lot of the programs that we're fighting, because his programs that he set, especially in education, has now grown. So for sure, I would say that him. Our current administration, I mean, you're talking about letting people opening the borders, for sure. I think there's a lot of people in both Republicans and Democrats. I think that they're traitors. I think anybody who's sent money overseas, our tax dollars, anybody who supported open borders, anybody who was too much of a coward to stand up to mask and vaccines. I think without naming, I don't know if I can name a name, but I would say the people in the medical community, I think they've been big traitors, big traitors. Pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, all those big, I think they're absolute traitors. Because you know what these things do, you know what the puberty blockers do, you know what the vaccines do, and you put it out anyway. And I think that's a betrayal of the American trust, for sure.
Well, I agree with you on that one. So to end this on a positive note, how
Yes.
about a couple who are you like who are your heroes? Who have driven you to be where you are doing what you're doing today? Who are the
Well,
patriots?
I would
Proud of
say,
them.
I would say that, like I said, I wouldn't name them publicly because then they would get get doxxed. But I think my greatest luck in life is that I've had very good mentors. Not because they were necessarily patriots fighting for America, but they taught me that uh, that I don't have any competitors. The only person I'm competing against is myself. So if I don't do well, that's okay. Did I do better than I did last year? Or if I don't, then the next year I get a chance to do it again. And I think my mentors have been very good about teaching me to focus on the long game. That no matter what problem I have, it will only look bad now. But if you keep working at it, you can improve the situation, no matter how impossible the situation. My father was amazing, is amazing. He's with us. He's amazing. But after that, I've had very good mentors, and I think they were very good about reminding me how lucky I was to be born in this country. And I think that's the greatest thing any man can do, any woman can do. But I mean, I can speak as a man. If you have a chance to influence a young man, the greatest thing you can tell him is how lucky he's born in this country, how lucky he is. Because through that luck and through that hope, when he gets beaten down, because look, as a man, no one wants to tell young men this, but you lose more than you win. That's just the fact of life. But it doesn't matter how many times you lose. You just got to win one or two times, and everybody calls you lucky. So
Right.
that's what it is. And I think just telling kids that they're lucky to be born in this country, it's the greatest thing you can tell. It's one of the best things you can tell a young person. And I think I've been very lucky in that regard. But as far as, patriots go, I think a lot of the parents who I fight with, like yourself, you've risked jobs, you gave up earning potential, you've done all these different things. And to me, it's easy to be a patriot when you have, great,
Right.
like I love Matt Walsh. I think Matt Walsh, I've been following Matt Walsh for a long, long time when he was just a blogger. So I've known about Matt Walsh for like 15 years. So I love the guy. I think he's great. I think he really found his niche. He's hilarious. And it's not easy. He had to work at it. But I think a lot of parents will come and say, well, he's with Daily Wire. He's got, 3 million followers, whatever. But I think for the parents that go up and their hands are shaking and they speak in front of the school board, or they meet with a counselor and they have our 10 questions and then they do it, to me, those are the patriots. But the best fighter I know is and I'm biased about this. I don't think I'm biased about this, but is my co-founder, Jennifer McWilliams. She got fired. She could have just said, hey, I've done my part. But she just kept going. She kept going and kept fighting and kept dragging the country along, understanding what social emotional learning is. And even though everybody called her crazy, and now everything she was talking about is in every school. And I think there's no one really like her, but there's certainly people that are in other industries, like in the medical industry. I mean, I know a few therapists that have done what she did, but in that world, there are some doctors. Like I just talked to one the other day. He's like, Colin, swipe right on X. He spent 12 years being an evolutionary biologist, career gone. But now he's turned into something else. Only in this country can you work for 12 years for something, completely gone, and then reinvent himself because he was so angry at looking at this situation, at what's going on with the trans ideology, because it's just such an offense to what he knows is biology. Only in America, in any other country, he's living on the street. right? In other countries, he's
Right.
dying on the street. So the fact that he just turned that around and now he can make a living, a hard living, doing it, it's amazing. And so, my co-founder there, she just, I mean, those people to me are the people who are the patriots to me. Those are the people that are my heroes, not the people that, like I said, I know they work hard. I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's easy to look at them and say, oh, they got all these resources, but they have to work at it. It's the people that are shaking today. Those are the people who are my heroes, because I know that if more people are like that shakes and goes into their principal's office and say, I'm not going to let you show this to my child. I don't care what you call me. Those people, those are my heroes today.
I love that. I agree. That makes me, I agree with you. That is exactly a warrior and a true just patriot and just a decent human being. And I I can't think of a better way to end this show. Alvin, thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge and your insights and your guidance, and for courageasahabit.org and all of the tools that you give us, and just for being a leader in this war on our children. I hope everyone goes to watch the war on children as well and supports you at courageasahabit.org. I appreciate you so
Thank
much.
you
I'm so
so
glad we
much.
have this. And
I'm
I love
so happy to
you.
be here. Thank you for inviting me. And we're a nonprofit, so sharing our tools, hitting that courageous supporter. Every dollar goes a really long way, so we can keep making these tools. But what you're doing over there, Nicole, it's tough. It is the mothership, and I know, trust me, I know it. And the fact that you're out there just killing it, doing your micro videos, hauling around your little kids and doing that is hard. That is extremely hard. And I know you're making a huge difference there in a place where it is a tough fight.
Well, thank you. We're doing the best that we can. So goes California. So goes the rest of the country. So we have to keep fighting. If they take down California, then I am sure the rest of the country and then the rest of the world is sure to follow. So thank you
Yep.
so much. I feel blessed to be fighting this battle alongside you, and I will see you hopefully sooner rather. I'll see you actually. I will see you very, very soon. I can't wait.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye,
Bye.
Alvin.